So Ken, are you ready?
Yep. Let's see. Queued up to YouTube. All right, go ahead.
All right. Good evening, everybody. Let's start this night evening with a Pledge of Allegiance. We'll all stand. Pledge of Allegiance.
Pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Thank you. Can I have a motion to approve the agenda?
So moved.
Second.
Thank you. All in favor?
Aye.
I see a lot of hands. First, it's time for public comment. Ken, do we have any public comment?
We have one person raising their hand. The last four of the phone number ends in 6384. You can go ahead and talk. You might have to dial *6 to unmute yourself.
Good evening. This is Juan Stefan. I am a resident of Durham whose 4 kids have either graduated from District 13 or currently enrolled in District 13. I'm also a member of the RSD Wellbeing Committee. I'm here tonight to encourage members of the board to vote to accept the equity policy being presented to you tonight, acknowledging a need for equality across gender, race, and socioeconomic class is not putting one group or another. It is recognizing that historically or socially marginalized groups deserve to be at the same table. It is recognizing that an individual is different and that they have been wrongfully and unequally treated because of that difference. It is not to compare and to contrast, but just to recognize and correct. And I believe that is what this policy as written is meant to speak to, and it allows us to simply say that discrimination exists in our schools, and we as a community will not allow that. We may be nice to each other in everyday conversations, but to continue to support policies and practices that whitewash the lack of equality, even turn the other cheek to actions that do harm to one group, leaves us fundamentally disrespecting and marginalizing each other. We can't unite all groups at the same table until we recognize that we have not supported all equally and take action to correct this. And we need to empower ourselves as individuals and especially our school administration to take action. While I also agree that we need to make sure we provide students who need it extra support to meet the academic benchmarks and that we need to help them come into their own personhoods. This is something that the student-centered learning work some of us are doing with Dr. Shook I've been working really hard to answer. So I encourage you to adopt the policy as written so that we can continue to make sure discrimination and the hateful actions it brings has no place in our school community. Thank you.
Thank you, Juan. Are there any other comments, Ken?
No other callers.
Thank you very much. Brian, you and Scott, do you want to recognize, or Doug, do you want to recognize the CABE Student Leadership Awards?
Brian and Scott will do that for us this evening. Thank you.
Yeah.
Brian, you want to start?
Sure. Thank you for having us this evening. We have 2 students from each school. So the 2 students from the high school, the first is Aiden Garcia. Aiden, could you wave to everyone? There you go, Aiden. Thank you very much. Aiden has earned a 4.03 grade point average and has taken numerous honors and college level classes throughout his 4 years at Coggin-Chog. He received the Colt Award in French and has been inducted into the French Honor Society. In addition, he was elected as the co-president of the French Honor Society this year. Aiden's a member of the boys soccer team, the indoor and outdoor track teams, and he is also a member of the chamber choir, a cappella group, and the Envirothon team at Coggin-Chog. So he has quite a resume and is involved in numerous activities in our school. So that's our first award winner from Coggin-Chog. Our second is Caroline Smith. Caroline, where are you? I'm looking at the checkerboard. There you are, up top of my screen anyway. Caroline has earned a 3.84 GPA while taking rigorous honors and college level courses at Coggins. But she's devoted herself to community service throughout her 4 years at Coggins by giving to various organizations such as the Lions Club of Durham, Habitat for Humanity, the Honduras Children's Project, and many others. Additionally, she teaches dance to younger children and is part of a program that teaches dance to children with special needs. Caroline's also been a part of the girls' softball team for the past 4 years and is a member of our National Honor Society. So on behalf of the faculty and administration at Coggins, we'd like to congratulate both Caroline and Aiden for a job well done in representing our school. So thank you guys.
So great to hear, and very proud of Aiden and Caroline for their incredible work. They started back at Strong and continued right through the high school. So I appreciate the opportunity to introduce the Board of Education and anyone out there who's watching to fantastic student leaders. First, we're going to start with Emily Allen, and on my screen, she's in the upper right-hand corner. Emily, want to give a little wave? There you go. Emily is a conscientious, hardworking student who shows responsibility and leadership across academic settings. She is generous, kind, and always willing to help others. Emily is incredibly helpful, supportive, and inclusive of our life skill students. She has earned the CIAC Unified Sports Michaels Cup Award for the last 2 years for her participation with Unified Sports Team at Strong School. And that's Emily Allen, a wonderful young lady. Looking forward to seeing what you do throughout your high school career. Next, we have Andrew Fazone Chediar. Andrew, want to wave to the crowd, please? There you go, Andrew. Andrew is a well-rounded student who excels both in and out of the classroom. Andrew has shown immense responsibility and independence by attending 8th grade remotely. Andrew is an active participant in class, seeks out constructive feedback, and is a positive role model to his peers as well. Along with a leader in academics, Andrew is in the Strong School Jazz Band, debate club, and played basketball. Outside of school, Andrew participates in Paper House Productions Theater, Boy Scouts, Premier Soccer, and is involved in his church. Well done, Andrew. I look forward to seeing what you do through your high school career as well.
Congratulations to all of you. Would any of you like to say any words to us?
I just want to say thank you so much for all the support that Mr. Sadinsky has given me. It's just I just really appreciate it, and it's very helpful. So thank you so much.
Emily?
I just want to say thank you.
All right. Aiden?
Same. I'm very honored to receive this, and yeah, thank you.
And Caroline?
I also just wanted to say thank you for the recognition.
Your parents want to say anything? Are they listening? I'm sure you're the same at home as you are in school, right?
Good.
Hi, this is Andrew's mother. We just want to thank everyone for recognizing Andrew, and I just want to thank the district for just the fine education that the children receive, and all the support, especially during these difficult times. It's been really wonderful. We have 2 children in the district, and they're both remote, and it's been great to know that the district has been so supportive. So thank you very much. We're very grateful.
We're proud to have your children. Any other parent want to say anything to embarrass their children? I guess not. You guys are lucky. Well, thank you very much and congratulations. And I hope you have a good end of the year. Some will graduate and some will move on to high school. And both are big challenges for all of you as to change your life dramatically. So thank you so much and congratulations. Any board members want to say anything?
just simply wanted to congratulate all 4 of these awesome students on doing such a great job. You should be very proud, as we are.
Andrew, I was able to catch a performance, probably the last one you did, at Coggins with the jazz band. I think Keegan Ferretti was with you. It was awesome. Really, really well done.
Thank you so much. You obviously got to put a lot of effort into it, and I hope that I really appreciate the feedback. Thank you.
Well, thank you so much for coming tonight, and I'm sorry you couldn't be in person, but pretty soon we will be. So thank you so much. Thank you, Brian and Scott and Doug. The next item is our student reporters, in whatever order you want.
Can you guys see and hear me? I've been having some Wi-Fi issues.
Yeah.
Okay. Hi, everyone. My name is Katie. I'm here tonight with Jaden and Noelle to share what this school year has been like and how students and teachers have overcome the challenges this year posed to all of us. Every teacher at the high school has made the most of our unpredictable schedule this year. I asked several teachers how they felt about this school year, and the responses I got were all very similar. Everyone had a very hard time switching between remote and in-person learning and experienced frustration, especially when there was an unexpected schedule change late at night. My mother is a teacher in the district, so I got a firsthand view of what that looks like as teachers had to change their in-person lesson plans to be taught online. Many teachers were able to adapt and take advantage of asynchronous learning, something we really haven't experienced before. Online learning did provide some freedoms that teachers and students alike have not previously experienced, but it often presented a new set of challenges. Full in-person learning with some students online was also difficult. Many teachers utilize Jamboard, which is like an interactive PowerPoint, and other new technologies we've been provided with to keep students engaged. Online learning games like Kahoot and Gimkit have also been heavily relied upon. The fact that we have more or less made it through this school year is really a testament to the dedication our teachers have for their students and our community, and a perfect example of how they can adapt to whatever situation is thrown at them.
Hi, I'm Jaden Astle, and I will be talking about sort of the struggle of students throughout the past year and what the students of Coggins and students all around the state and nation have had to face. At least from what I've seen, there was definitely a clear lack of, or at the very least, a decrease in the motivation levels of our students. Oftentimes, it was hard to concentrate and focus on the content being presented to us, especially when we had to be taken to remote learning unexpectedly and sort of out of the blue. It caused a lot of frustration between both students and staff because it really disrupted sort of the education process and it sort of altered that sort of constant flow of continuation that teachers had planned and that students had grown used to. One of the major results of this is like discouragement, which again comes from the lack of motivation. With the whole scenario, is just really hard for students to sort of pick themselves up and try their best to adapt to these new circumstances because it's just really hard and it's just not at all what they were used to. The environment at school was also very different. Obviously, a significant percentage of students in every grade is currently under remote learning. So every day is sort of a constant reminder of how out of the ordinary we really are. Seeing everyone, just like seeing everyone wearing masks and having a social distance and following all these new rules, especially with a lot of the student body gone. It's just sort of a constant reminder of the state that we're in. And oftentimes it could be depressing or once again, take away the motivation of students. Throughout the past year, there hasn't been a whole lot to look forward to. Of course, in terms of seniors, the senior trip has been canceled, but beyond just seniors alone, there have been previous music programs canceled, club opportunities have been canceled and are no longer occurring. There's even been sports hindrances, as you've heard about, with lack of competitions as well as lack of a season at all in case of football. As we sort of approach the end, quote unquote, to COVID and just this whole weird scenario, I think it's super important to remember that throughout the past year, like these are real communities, real families, and real people that have been affected dramatically, whether it be financially, physically, or emotionally.
I'm Noelle. I'm going to take a more positive note. I'm going to talk about what's to come the rest of the year. So given this tumultuous year, it does appear that there is a light at the end of the tunnel. As we near the end of our year, we finally have some events to look forward to. We continue to have our spring sports entering into shoreline tournaments in the coming weeks. Along with this, we are very excited to have our senior night at Quasi this Saturday. It will be a semi-formal dance with food, a DJ, and rides to all enjoy. Then next Friday, we have our very first band and choral concert of the year at 5:30 on the turf. The following Friday, we have our NHS induction. It will be held in person for students and then live streamed for all parents to enjoy. Finally, wrapping up this year, we have our senior scholarship ceremony on June 9th, and then our long-awaited graduation ceremony on the 17th. Although this year was anything but normal, we're grateful to have even a few of the experiences that make high school so special. And yes, we have all struggled through this year, but it's very evident at this point we seek and need normalcy. We need to have kids back in school, not only at the high school, but at all grade levels, because school is not only about classes or academics, it's about community involvement and engaging the students in something greater than themselves. In this coming year, I hope we can get back to this because I know it is everyone's priority. So I just want to say thank you again for having us. We really do appreciate the chance to share our thoughts and perspectives with you all.
Thank you. Can you, each one of us, give us your plans for next year?
I am going to Oberlin and I'm planning on majoring in history and possibly minoring in Hispanic studies.
I am attending UConn with a major in cognitive science.
I'm going to Susquehanna in Pennsylvania, majoring in elementary education and playing soccer as well.
Bob, if I may for a second speak.
Sure.
All right, I just want you to know that the students come to me and we talk about what they want to talk about at this meeting and what they want to portray to you. And it's been a struggle this year for them, and they wanted to show the work that our teachers have done, the work that they've done, and how they've pushed through some of the struggles. And so, they wanted to hit all those points. And I think we tried to end with Noelle saying, okay, we're trying to get back into some of these events that are really supposed to be there for the kids and that they've missed throughout the year. But I think when they came to me and we started talking about what they wanted to present to you, I want it to be real. I want it to be raw. I want you to hear what's going on in our schools with our students. And so I think it's important that Jaden, Katie, and Noelle share their real feelings and thoughts of what they went through this year. This is not a normal year, but I think it's very important for the board to see where our students are and what they're feeling. And so I know sometimes, like when they're expressing it to me, we rehearse this. I want you to know I heard this before they came to you, but it's hard for me to hear because it's very hard to see what our kids are going through right now. But I think you need to hear it. It's our job as administrators and teachers and as a board to see what they're going through and see how we could support them. So.
Thank you, Brian, and thank you, guys. And I really appreciate all your work to keep us up to date on what's going on this year. I know everybody has struggled through, but I think all three of you have really succeeded in your high school career and are really proud to know you and to watch you mature into college and have a new career. And thank you so much for all your efforts this year. We have another meeting if you're still in school, and hopefully we can see you one more time. And we'll talk about the parties instead of all the difficulties you've had. So, any other comments for our reporters? Doug, do you have anything?
Well, thank you, Bob, and I appreciate it. Yeah, I just want to reiterate my thanks for you all. One, for being here, but also for being so transparent and maybe even a little bit vulnerable in what you've shared. You're not just sharing with us, you're also sharing with the public. I don't know how many of them are watching, but I do think, to Brian's points and to all of yours, it's important to recognize the moment for what it is. Yes, it may make us a little bit sad, and you might even be feeling right now, why did this have to happen during my senior year? I had the honor of watching our older daughter graduate from college this past weekend, and I know that's how she and a lot of her classmates were feeling at the collegiate level. But I think the flip side to that is, when you go through life, everything doesn't always go the way that you've planned, and everything doesn't always work out. And I think what kind of defines us as individuals is how we respond in those moments. So again, I appreciate that you all have stepped up in these moments, but also that you recognize that your teachers and your classmates have done that too. And so I think you're inspiring us all to try to get back to normal, whatever that means, as soon as possible. And I know I heard that. I hope everybody else did as well. So thank you.
Thank you for giving us this platform to share our thoughts and our feelings.
Thank you, Katie. If there's no other comments, we go on to item 6, approval of minutes. The motion to approve the Board of Education regular meeting minutes of March 31st, 2021.
So moved.
Do I have a
Second.
Any
Second.
comment? All in favor? Say aye.
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 Aye. Next one is item B, Board of Education regular meeting April 7th, 2021.
Move approval.
The motion to approve.
So moved.
Look like there is there a second. Thank you, Andrew. Any comments? All in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Aye. Thank you. Next is the Board of Education public hearing on April 7th, 2021. The motion to approve those minutes.
So moved.
Second.
Any comments? All in favor, please say aye.
Aye. I'll abstain.
And one abstention. The next board meeting is May 26th at 7 p.m. It will be in the Coggins Library in person. There will also be an executive session during that meeting for the superintendent's evaluation and review. So that get your mask ready, and we'll be in there, and there'll be room for public as well. And the public will not be able to call in like they do here. So if you want to have any comment, you have to do it either in person or email. And I'll answer the email after the meeting. Thank you. The next item is item 8, committee reports. The policy committee.
Can I interrupt you for a second?
Sure.
I just noticed that there's 3 youngsters still on, and I just want you to know we will not be offended if you turn off this meeting, because you probably want to go to bed or do something more fun. So congratulations, but you don't have to stay. Right?
Right.
Agree.
Not that we don't want your company. Please don't take it personally.
I'll translate We recognize you don't want our company.
Maybe they do. So the next item is committee reports, policy committee meeting. The first one is a possible vote on the equity policy. The equity policy was sent out. Doug, did you have a correction to that before we take a motion? Can you hear me?
I can hear you, Bob.
Doug, did you find the error that you said was in the?
Oh, I'm sorry. Yeah, I didn't catch that, Bob. Your voice was kind of low. Well, and Missy sent something today. I don't know it's so much as an error. It's just in one of the edits, and I don't want to speak for you, Missy, but after I saw your comment today, I agreed. It looks like the second sentence on the draft is not, it doesn't flow well grammatically, and it's, and I apologize for that. There was an original draft that I had given back in early March, and there have been a few edits, I think, from a few of our committees and even from a few board members. And so we can do this a number of ways. I think it would be important to know if the spirit of the policy is where people want to go, and then we can talk about how we could wordsmith that second sentence. Just so you know, the intent of that second sentence was to marry the kind of the emphasis of the policy to the mission statement of the district.
Doug, is it possible to share your screen, or if we can see just the policy?
Do you want to see
do this dynamically to some degree?
Yeah. Do you want to see the original one that I drafted, or the latest version that Meg sent you guys?
Latest. Whatever it is we're going to act on, we should have projected before.
Okay. Let me pull that up then. Give me just 1 second here. Anyone else can get it up faster, I won't be offended.
I've got it now, Doug, and I've got
You
it
do?
in-
Okay, go ahead, Victor.
I have it
Thank
in
you.
an editable form. Here it comes, I hope. I'm sorry, is that the wrong one? No, okay, sorry,
right.
too many windows here. Okay, this is copied out of the PDF into a Word document so that as we change it, if we agree on changes, I can put them online so we can see the final document that we're approving.
And the language Doug was concerned about was the second sentence, which seemed to have gotten edited somewhere along the line, but it doesn't make sense quite now. And
could we just substitute the word "and" for "while"? Values diversity and is committed to seeking.
yeah, I think the original line was aims to develop rather than while it's committed to seeking.
Do you want me to read the original second sentence?
Sure.
Yeah.
The district values diversity in our schools and community and seeks to develop the capacity for cultural competence in empowering learners to thrive as global citizens.
Why don't we go back to that?
Yeah, I agree. That sounds better.
Yeah.
And I'm sorry, I'm trying to get this into red type. And seeks to develop the capacity, is that correct?
Correct. Seeks to develop the capacity for cultural competence in empowering learners to thrive as global citizens.
Thank you, Doug. Somewhere along the line, it got messed up with all the edits that were playing around. So.
And again, our mission statement doesn't need to be in there. When I was drafting it, I thought it would be kind of nice if we could tie it back to that, because I think it's pretty powerful.
Victor, you could also probably remove that comma after community.
Yes, thank you.
Can you hear me now?
Yes.
Because I lost you for a minute. So if you can hear me, can we have a motion to adopt this policy?
I'll move to adopt the policy as amended and shown on the screen.
I'll second that.
Do you have any comments?
Yes, I would like to comment. As you well know, I've had submitted some suggested changes to the equity policy. And this is the board's first read of the proposed, I believe it's like first read of the proposed equity policy. These changes that I'm suggesting, and I had kind of changed some of the pieces that I did the first time. I added some other pieces, and I believe I sent an email to everyone with an attachment because I don't think people could find it on Google Drive. I couldn't either, so still working, still trying to figure it all out. But anyhow, the changes that I'm suggesting do not in any way alter the intent or focus of the proposed equity policy. Hopefully you'll understand those changes better when I'm finished. The first change that I had put out was we have unity policy. I would like to make it a more inclusive title to read diversity, inclusion, equity, and unity policy. The first change that I made, and I don't need to go over it specifically, but was within the first paragraph, I had in there what is written, Regional School District 13 believes, and what I changed was that a community whose ultimate goals are focused on unity, and then I went on to say provides, and I added unbiased and equitable, and then it goes on normally, opportunities and accessibility to all programs, services, and resources, and is critical to the achievement of all learners. Okay, I'm not sure if that's going to confuse anyone. I wish I could put it up on the screen. The rest of the paragraph is fine. Under the first bullet, it says adopting, and I added the word unbiased procedures to ensure a focus on, and what I changed it to is unity in a school community. And then it's the rest of the bullet as is written, that is inclusive of diversity in race, ethnicity, language, gender, cultural values, and family belief systems. Under the second bullet, it starts out ensuring that staff are demonstrated, and I added unbiased and then it continues ethical behaviors and respect for diversity through daily actions and decision-making, and I added that encourage unity. Under the third bullet, it starts ensuring, and I added unbiased, equitable, and equal, and then it continues opportunities and access to programs, services, and resources. Under the last bullet, it starts out providing opportunities for all staff to improve culturally, and I added and unbiased, and it continues responsive instructional practices. I added to access unbiased resources, and then it continues curriculum and assessments and improving its, and I added the word unbiased, cultural competencies in serving, and I added the word all, are racially, culturally, and ethically diverse students, families, and communities. The focus of my suggested changes are on unity and bias. So why the focus on unity? Unity is the ultimate overarching goal. Unity is being united as a whole. It implies, thank you, it implies solidarity and being together or at one with someone. Unity is the ultimate goal and is so important that even Alveda King, the niece of Martin Luther King, recently said, "We are one blood, one human race, and should be regarded as equal from the womb to the tomb." Why focus on bias? Unity recognizes, addresses, and accepts differences without marginalizing any group. With unity, individual needs are identified and addressed in an unbiased manner. With unity, all groups are accepted and included and strive to be in harmony or one in spirit. Differences are identified, debated, and addressed in a way that maintains the dignity and respect for all groups and does not marginalize or demean one group to address the needs of another. RSD13 has already clearly identified what characteristics our students should have as graduates and citizens. A large number of community members and staff met to develop the RSD13 Portrait of a Citizen. Within this document, there are 28 individual characteristics that we expect our graduate citizens to possess. Some of those characteristics include understanding and taking care of personal health, well-being, and the environment, and appreciation of all living things. But at least 20 of the 28 characteristics, or 71%, involve characteristics that espouse and support an open mindset dealing with, debating, and problem solving of issues. Here are those characteristics which were agreed upon by a large group of our communities and educators. The four main areas of you're familiar with it, the Portrait of a Citizen are: demonstrates compassion for self and others, thinks creatively and critically, demonstrates personal and social responsibility, communicates and collaborates. And under those, I'd like to mention the specific ones to show you just how much they focus on our students being open-minded and unbiased, and how critical that is for our own school district. We've already are putting this out. 1, uses voice and choice to advocate for self and others. Number 2, acts with empathy and kindness. 3, takes initiative to learn about and understand others. 4, asks questions. 5, accesses a variety of resources from multiple perspectives. 6, analyzes and evaluates information. 7, formulates opinion based on evidence. 8, uses inquiry and design processes. 9, takes intellectual risks and solves problems. 10, perseveres, reflects, and revisits for an improved outcome. 11, understands and values their unique voice. 12, accepts responsibility for personal decisions and actions. 13, acts ethically and responsibly, including an understanding of a commitment to equity. 14, recognizes and addresses one's own biases. 15, demonstrates a sense of agency linked to action. 16, listens carefully and speaks respectfully. 17, considers the perspective of the other, including feelings, ideas, opinions, and experiences. 18, collaborates with others to create new ideas and solutions. 19, recognizes and shares the success of the collaborative process. And 20, uses multiple modes of communication to motivate, influence, and engage. RSD13 has already committed itself to ensuring that our graduates, our next citizens, have an open mind, are inquisitive, and strive to work together with others, regardless of their opinions, in an effort to solve problems. That's why it's critical that all resources, instruction, and discussions are non-biased. Otherwise, we would be going against our own goals to develop citizens who are open-minded, inquisitive thinkers, and problem solvers. Equity is a part of the overall goal of unity. It cannot be ignored, but it must be executed carefully and fairly. An excellent example of carefully and fairly executed equity lies with the implementation of the Americans with Disabilities Act of 1990. The needs of people with disabilities were ignored and not being met for years. People with disabilities were ridiculed and shamed and discriminated against. Their needs had to be addressed. With the passage of the Americans with Disabilities Act, the needs of the disabled were finally being addressed directly. Ramps, handicap parking, elevators, etc. were put in place to help those with physical disabilities to be able to access buildings and areas that they were not able to before. I'm almost done. Special instruction was instituted for those with language, learning, and emotional disabilities. They were developed and put into place. As many of the needs of those with a disability were addressed as possible and are still being addressed as different needs arise. But in the process of addressing the needs of the disabled, no other group was marginalized. Those who could walk were not asked to be ashamed or apologize so they could walk. Special Olympics were created in an effort to afford those with disabilities to be able to play sports without jeopardizing or marginalizing any other athletes participating in sports. Our high school is offering a course, American Voices, to examine social issues. I had an opportunity to read the course book titled The Other Wes Moore. It is an excellent account of two separate men with the same name, born at the same time and in the same circumstances. One man went on to be a Rhodes Scholar. The other is in jail serving a life sentence. Without bias, the book explores each man's backgrounds, decisions, influences, etc. It is an excellent, unbiased source to explore and understand how social issues and other factors influence decisions and outcomes. Those are some of the reasons for focusing on unity and bias with this policy. Let's think outside the box. Let RSD13 be a leader in addressing social justice issues. Let RSD13 stand out and forge a different, inclusive, open-minded approach. RSD13 has already set those standards in motion with the Portrait of a Citizen and the district's core ethical values. Let's make sure that as a board, we also support those standards. Thank you.
Thank you, Lucy. Are you making this a motion?
Yes, I can make a motion to accept the suggested changes to the equity policy that you have on your screen.
This is how it works. I made the motion for the original policy.
So I would like to amend.
And Andrew seconded it.
Right.
If both of us agree to the amendment then the motion that I made becomes your motion. But I have to disagree, Lucy, and so I will not agree to modifying the amendment. That means that you need a motion to amend the original text to be this text. And you need a second for that motion. So I think you make that motion, Lucy. I was just explaining, putting that in context.
Okay, right. Okay, so I did. So I basically made an motion to amend your motion.
Yes.
Yes. Okay. And I need a second for that. Okay.
And I would definitely second it. I have to say that although we've had this conversation on well-being committee already, and not to reiterate what's already been discussed, but I do think that I understand, and I know Juan had called in earlier and completely understand the stance. I think that this is much needed policy. We just need it in place so that there is something for administration and teachers to follow. I do support Lucy's addition of adding unbiased and focusing on unity. I don't think it takes away from the policy at all. I think it actually, in my mindset, it adds to the expectation. And again, especially since I have in my mind, and as Lucy did, it just parallels with what we already portray with the Portrait of Our Citizen. So I do second it.
We have a motion and a second. Is there comment? I have comments. I think that while unity is perhaps a goal, doesn't reflect what we really need to deal with equity. Equity is about correcting the issues that are occurring either directly or indirectly among students and others who are marginalized or have a disability or have a race or gender issue. And we need to focus on the equity of our instruction and the equity of our
Bob, we lost you.
Bob, you're cutting out.
everybody equal education, but that's not what this is about. We're trying to get equity into them so that they can achieve what they're capable of achieving on their own or in their future. And in terms of bias and unbiased, it puts the board in a decision or the precarious position of having to determine what is bias. You know, a lot of people today don't accept climate change. So if we were to teach a course on climate change, does that mean that people who think that we're biased in favor of climate change or other science issues would ask the board to get involved in looking at the curriculum or looking at the books that we're using and things like that? So I think that it broadens the ideas, but I think we're at a point where we need to focus in on the individual and our services for each individual student and correcting problems rather than reaching out for a broader goal. And I think having the words of unbiased in there really forces the board into a situation of evaluation of coursework and a variety of other things that we are not really capable of doing and should not be doing at this time. Are there other comments?
Yeah,
Go ahead.
Jamie, go ahead.
I do believe there's quite a bit of redundancy with the unbiased. I think a more powerful word, perhaps we can include it. I don't want to edit the whole document, but the unconscious bias. The reality is our community, we all have unconscious bias. And unless you're actually in a scenario where you're the minority, you don't understand. Unconscious bias to me is a more powerful word to incorporate at least once, to be able to recognize it and correct it.
Mhm.
Bob, Yamartino, did you want to say something?
Yeah, one thing is I'd like to actually see a full red line version of the original proposal and this one to understand. But when I look at the 1, 2, 3rd bullet down, ensuring unbiased, equitable, and equal opportunities and access to programs, services, and resources, I don't see, I'd like to see what the original sentence was, but I don't see, I see that as very powerful. And I think that is very important. And Bob, not to contradict what you said, but I think ensuring unbiased, equitable, and equal opportunities and access to program services and resources, I think it's a perfectly appropriate place to use the unbiased word, the equitable and equal opportunities. I think it actually works very well there. I'm not sure about throughout the rest of the document, because you said when you talk about if we wanted to teach about global change, well, then we're taking a biased position because there are people that can claim, okay, I get that. But when I look at this statement and I actually look at the second sentence that, develop the capacity for cultural competence, I think I know what that means. I know what that means to me. I'm not sure it means the same to everybody. So I think in a policy that we write and approve, there is going to be judgment as we move forward. There is going to be interpretation. I mean, the Constitution has been argued about for over 200 years about the interpretation and what it means and how all men are created equal. What that actually means has been debated and for over 250 years. So I'm okay with some of the changes that Lucy is proposing, maybe not 100% of them. So I'm kind of on the fence, but I think it's worth discussing and let's make sure we get it right.
I'd like to respond, Lucy, to your emendations. With all respect, words have the meanings we give them. Dictionaries don't define words, they record the editor's perceptions of the meanings that we give to them. I refer to the foreword of the American Heritage Dictionary from approximately 1970. Sorry, it's been about 50 years since I read the preface to a dictionary, but that's a particular understanding of the way language is developed. In this particular case, the word unity scares the heck out of me. And understanding your perception of the word, I have to say also that unity, the word unity, as I said at the last meeting, the word unity has widely been used to suppress dissent. You know, the German people were unified by Nazism. Those of us who remember the 50s and the 60s and the 70s civil rights movement will remember that many people in the South called for unity, and that meant stop making waves. Many people think that the word unity means sameness, uniformity, comes from the same root. And I believe that including the word unity in this policy actually vitiates its and defeats its intention. So although I don't disagree that we would like to all be unified, I don't think the word is useful in this context because it will be used in ways, Lucy, that you do not intend it to be used. And it is for that reason that I will oppose the substitutions that you have introduced. With regret and love.
Are there any other comments?
I just wanted to say that I agree with Victor on his point about the meaning behind words and what they can message to larger communities. And Victor, you didn't comment on the unbiased word choice there, but I think that equally is problematic in its use. And I think we have to also recognize that sometimes to achieve equitable opportunities that we have to have sometimes biased systems. And that is biased not in the negative context, but it is, it's allocation of resources in a differential way. We do that all the time when you talk about, different needs-based funding and resources. So I think, having that word in there and saying unbiased leaves us open to all kinds of problems in the future and challenges in multiple different ways. And so, I think I'm against having either of those words in there, despite the fact that I think if you took it out of the larger context of everything, those are wonderful words, but they're particularly pernicious in these types of documents.
Are there any other comments? Doug, do you have anything you want to say or not?
Well, I wasn't going to, but since you asked, I would say this again. Soon I won't be saying I've only been here for a few months, but for right now it's true. And what I would say is in my interaction with some members of our community, many of whom have joined as guests with well-being and things like that, and kind of asked them their take on all of this, I think it's fair to say that the majority of these folks kind of supported the original draft policy. But even beyond that, what I sense from them is some frustration that there is no policy. So I guess my first comment is I think having a policy is better than having no policy. My second comment is that when you read this policy, it really reads less like a policy in the formal sense and more like a position statement. But I do believe in these circumstances, it is appropriate for this position to be stated. And I think at the core of whatever we adopt, and whenever we adopt it, I hope it's tonight, but whenever that happens, is I think each of you have to wrestle with, do you believe, without pointing fingers at any individuals or any institutions historically or even now, do you believe that our system of education, the way it was designed, naturally creates inequities? I happen to believe that. I think there's clear evidence of that, and I didn't pay Juan to say what she said, but she and I have talked about this, and one of the reasons I'm passionate about learner-centered education is because it attempts to redesign the system to achieve many things, including making everyone feel more safe and included in who they are, not just as learners, but as people. And again, that's not an indictment that our current system doesn't do that perfectly well, but the system we have now is not designed to do that. So, and again, I don't want to get off on a tangent about industrial age models and things like that, but I guess my overall point is I think this segment of the community and others who I probably haven't spoken to, they're looking for at some time sooner versus later this board to pass a policy, because I understand they've been asking for this for some years. And of course, COVID came and maybe, you know, we pumped the brakes on a lot of things. But given the events recently in our world, I think it's about time that we had a policy. And again, I can support whatever you guys pass, obviously, and I will, but the one that I drafted is the one I believe is the most appropriate.
Thank you, Doug. Is there any other comments? If there's no other comments.
I do, but I didn't want to speak before everyone else had an opportunity because I already took enough time before. Thank you. Thank you all for your comments. I appreciate it. I can't say that I agree with all of them, but I'm not going to go point by point to tell you what I don't agree with. And but I think it's really important. And, you know, we do, since this is the first read, we do not have to approve this tonight. We can take a look at it and see if there's anything else we might want to tweak into it. But when you talk about how do you determine bias, I think it's pretty obvious that there's a lot of materials out there that are biased one way or the other. If you're going to talk about climate change and you're going to bring it into the classroom, how do you determine if it's biased? Well, it's biased if you only talk that there is climate change. It becomes unbiased when you talk about both sides. And that's my whole point is we already have a portrait of a citizen that is expecting to have our students, our young adults, to come out very open-minded and looking at issues from both sides. And I think our policies should also follow that suit. Now, if you don't want to use the word unbiased, what's another word that could be put in here that would indicate that it's important that in putting together an equity policy, we ensure that it is actually equitable and it isn't biased or it doesn't marginalize one group over the other. You can't deny that this is not happening in other school districts. It is happening in other school districts. I don't want that to happen in our school district as we examine social issues. I can't tell you how impressed I am with the book that I read, The Other Wes Moore, how very, very sensitive social issues were brought up in that book, and they were brought up in a very clear, concise, unbiased way. But it certainly made you think. Even the questions at the end of the book were not directed one way or the other. They were right down the middle, giving whoever reads this book and discusses it the opportunity to look at the issues from both sides, or whatever issue, whatever the question was about. How do we ensure that in a policy like this? That's my concern. So, you know.
Are there any other comments?
I'd like to see something get adopted tonight. I wouldn't say that this is the first read. We've had the updated version from Doug for a while now, and I feel like we've been talking about this since last year. You know, while I agree with some of the points that Lucy is trying to make, I almost feel like less words is sometimes better. And I wouldn't feel comfortable adopting the policy with the word changes that she has at this point without our attorney looking at it, as well as some of the, you know, community members who have worked really hard getting us to where we are. So I would like to see us adopt what Doug had written, just with that change, those couple word changes to the second sentence.
Thank you, Missy. Are there any other comments?
I think we can all agree as a board that all of us desire to set a very high bar on this subject matter, and we're going to be judged more by our actions, perhaps a little bit less by the words.
Thank you, Jamie. If there's no other comments, we have a motion and a second. All in favor of the motion to amend?
Yeah, you have the amended motion that we have to vote on first. Is that correct?
Right,
So the motion, what we are voting on is to amend the original proposal to read as is now projected on the screen. That is Lucy's
correct.
motion as I understand it.
Right.
Okay, so if you vote for this, then we go back and we vote on adopting this as the policy.
Right.
Right now we're voting on this as an amendment to the original motion.
Everybody understand? All those in favor of the amendment as written, please say aye.
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 All right.
That's two, right?
Just for
All
the
those
record, it's
opposed?
Maura and Lucy.
Yeah, Maura and Lucy. All those opposed, say aye.
Nay.
Victor?
Nay.
Aye. Nay.
So that's-
Nay.
That's six, right? Any abstentions? So the amendment fails. Go back to the main motion. All those in favor of the main motion? Victor's read.
Can we continue discussion on the main motion?
Sorry, this is the wrong one. No, this is the wrong one. Sorry, I have too many windows going here.
All right.
Oh no, I just closed the one we wanted. I get
I don't need it open to ask my question,
Okay.
but discussion to continue on the main motion.
Yes.
I just, I wanted to assure that that text as presented is what was reviewed by our attorneys and given the green light. Okay, I see a nod from Doug.
Yes.
So thank you.
That's correct.
Just wanted to make sure.
Any other comments? Okay, all those in favor of the main motion, please say aye. Aye.
Aye.
Aye. Any
Opposed?
opposed? Are there any opposed?
No, but I abstain.
Okay, one abstention. Thank you. Motion carries. So this is a policy we're going forward. The next item is, wait a minute, I lost my agenda.
I think it's the utilization committee.
There's a disclaimer on
Oh
overnight.
man,
policy.
I jumped to it far ahead.
Yeah, there's a one sentence paragraph that was sent out to amend the policy to cover norms, normal concern. As soon as I find it, I will read it. Here it is.
Can we bring it up on the screen, please?
I can't share it. Maybe somebody else can.
Just give me a minute to find it here.
I can read it while you're looking for it, Victor.
Okay.
Field trip policy disclaimer regarding overnight travel. Parents or guardians of students anticipating participation in field trips must be made aware that school sanctioned trips may be withdrawn at any time due to the actions of, but not limited to, Homeland Security or other government or law enforcement agencies or health agencies, such as, but not limited to, the Center for Disease Control, and that parents or guardians of students be apprised of this possible action. And that would be added to every field trip policy that we get.
I move adoption of this.
I'll second it.
Any comments?
Yes, just one. It seems kind of, I want to say redundant or misplaced, where you're naming a specific agency such as Homeland Security, which is an agency. And then you're saying, or other government or law enforcement agencies or health agencies, such as but not limited to, and then specifically calling out Centers for Disease Control. So I'd almost move I mean, we're saying but not limited to twice in one sentence. I don't know if we shouldn't just combine it, not limited to Homeland Security, other governmental law enforcement agencies, health agencies, Centers for Disease, not have to call, rephrase it to say the same thing without the redundancy of the but not limited to.
Victor, are you able to make that adjustment?
I am just setting up to do that.
And some of you are much better at grammar than I am, because my best class in high school was lunch. But if you guys want to, wordsmith it, but along what I'm referring to.
Yeah, and for everybody, this gets attached to the request for field trips that the teachers and other administrators or others will submit. So this is like at the bottom of the thing. So when a parent signs a thing that their kid is going to on a field trip there, they know that it could be canceled for these reasons. So Victor, you made the motion. Can you accept those changes?
Let me see. I'm just going to write them in as I understand them. Let me just make this clear here by getting the red type up. I think it is very good that of government agencies.
It's the government agencies, to me, appears fully inclusive. Like, I'm not sure.
I believe that's correct.
I think you can just cross out everything else, because every one of those is in a government agency. Again, and we would never just shut down based on a private health group or something like that. So it would have to either come from the state or some other national government agency. So I just think you can say government agency, give one example and be done.
Or say, because this is, or just then leave such as but not limited to, and you could list the Homeland Security and Centers for Disease Control.
Sure, yeah.
Yeah, Centers for Disease Control, comma, law enforcement agencies, comma, and Homeland Security, or whichever order, Homeland Security first, whatever. But that way you're covering, what it is, some examples of what we are considering agencies that most likely to have us cancel a field trip.
Yeah, I think Norm was just very concerned if somebody was going to a Spanish class was going, then Homeland Security said you can't go, or CDC said you needed some other vaccination, those things could cancel the trip.
Okay, so we give 2 examples. So I'm going to, and the parents of guardians will be apprised of this possible action. Okay, so as I understand it, the motion reads, the policy reads, parents or guardians of students anticipating participating in field trips must be made aware that school-sanctioned trips may be withdrawn at any time due to actions of government agencies such as, but not limited to, Homeland Security or the Center for Disease Control, comma, and that parents or guardians of students shall be apprised of this possible action.
Victor, can we just kill that last part too?
The parents of guardians?
Because they're already being, the first part of is already saying that they must be made aware.
Yes.
So it just seems like that.
Works for me. Okay, you can all see it now. Do I need to read it again? Nah.
Looks good.
No, but just keeping in mind what Norm likes to read and say, after Homeland Security, add comma, law enforcement agencies, and then the or is fine.
Well, aren't law enforcement agencies government agencies?
Yes, but
Good.
He does call out law enforcement. He has every single one we've read into the record since I've been on the board. So
you want to say law?
I would add it, yeah, Homeland Security, law enforcement agencies, or the Center for Disease Control.
I'm sorry. Now, I'm an Oxford comma guy.
Yeah, I am too, so that's fine.
A+.
Yeah.
So you did something besides lunch.
Yeah, it might have been
You
the
learned
only
to
thing I
write.
learned.
All right, we have a motion and a second in a revised language. Everybody, you all set with revised language? Victor?
Yes.
Second is all set too?
I seconded it, so yes, I'm fine with it as well. Yep.
Any other discussion? All in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Thank you very much. The next is utilization committee. I know, Andrew, do you want to start or want me?
Yeah, I can run it. Can run us through real quick, and then I know you wanted probably to bring up the regional plan amendment language. But so our last utilization meeting, we had some discussion on the security grants and funding, and basically the kind of decision was made to hold another utilization meeting prior to our next Board of Education meeting so that we can have a kind of portfolio of security options and then be able to go through those options, select the ones that we feel like are appropriate, present those to the full board during our next meeting, and then with the possible vote. And all of this is a kind of compressed timeline because of the grant mechanism, and Kim probably can say much more about the timeline, but I think it's somewhere in like early to mid-June that we have to have this stuff in. And then there was some discussion around just Lyman and the potential for a buyer. We also, I think everybody received in their emails the letter of intent from Meriden Hills Baptist Church. So that is still ongoing. I'll skip down to the corn update, which is everybody knows the situation and what happened to corn. So it's now passed to the town. I'm sure there will be some work that needs to happen as far as kind of legal aspects of the transfer for that. But that was not discussed during our meeting. And then Bob, I'll go back to the Lyman and just let you talk about the regional plan amendment language.
Thank you. I sent out to everybody the first phase of the plan of the process of getting to a plan amendment. this is just similar that we did a year ago or a year and a half ago. The first thing it has to do is a report on the issues and the changes to the regional plan, the plan of regionalization, excuse me. And so it's very similar to the one we had last time, but it does recognize the changes that were occurred in because of the referendum and the changes that have occurred in some of the configurations. And it also puts in the dates when all these actions were taken. And finally,
Bob, we lost you for a second.
Bob,
you're cutting out.
So the thing that says the plan shall be amended as follows. The Board of Education and Regional School District 13, notwithstanding the recommendations of the temporary regional school study 1967 for the towns of Durham, Middlefield is authorized to close John Lyman Elementary School and maintain the following school configuration: Frederick Everett Brewster School, Memorial Middle School, Frank Ward Strong Middle School, and Coggins-Sharp Regional High School. This has to get sent. There was a change. There's an addition by either, I think, Lucy or Bob up in the first main second paragraph where I forgot the word, the Durham members shall be now serve term of 4. So the words the Durham has been added in. And this then gets sent to the Commissioner of Education. We need his approval or her approval now before we can move to the next step. So this is the technicality portion of it. As I talked to Matt Ritter about it, it can't be advocate. It has to really be very careful not to be too much of an advocate in it. One of the drafts I had sent him did have some advocacy in it, and we took it out. So this is just the straightforward changes to the regionalization plan, including the language we sent them last time. So, this is gone through by Matt. So if there's any other, I know Victor had a comment on language that we could, I think is fine. You want to go over that little language you've added there, Victor?
Right. I'd just like for the, I'm sorry, that's the wrong one. I'd like for the text before the bold to read, be amended by the addition of the following text. An amendment, after all, can also be a deletion or a substitution.
Yeah. That's fine. I think that's good language.
You know, as I look at this, where, you know, that second paragraph on the first page, where you're talking about the vote on February 11th, the plan of regionalization was amended by voters of Durham and Middlefield. It was actually amended by the voters in Durham, because I believe that question for the voters, for the board members being elected, was only on the ballot for Durham. I don't believe it was on the ballot for Middlefield.
No, it was on the ballots for both, and it had to pass in both times in order to amend the regionalization.
I couldn't remember that for sure. Okay.
That's correct, Bob. And again, it has to pass in both towns this time as well.
Yeah. My only question is, I know that you're adding the information up above to show all of the amendments that have been made up to this point. Is that why? Because the actual vote actually already amended it. So the plan has now been amended. Do we need to include that in this? Does that just confuse the issue at all?
This is just to go to the Commissioner of Education to say that this is what the new plan looks like. The current plan. Because it was amended last year. Are you still there?
Yes, I'm here. Yeah.
So this, unless you have any comments or changes, this is what the next step is to get approval from the Commission of Education to take the next step.
Do you have a motion yet?
No.
I'll move to approve the regional plan amendment as presented.
Bob, do we need to vote on this? I'm just, because it's not unfortunately listed on the agenda.
I think we just need concurrence on it. I don't think we need to vote because it has no, it's really a letter to the Commission of Education saying this is how the plan was changed and this is what we're thinking about.
Right, yeah. That'll save us from stepping out of our procedural bounds at this point.
So I'll just say thank you, Bob, for all the work you put
That's
into
right.
getting this done.
Well, Matt Ritter and I spent some time in between his other duties trying to make sure that this is the next step. I also sent it to Ann Baldwin, so she's in on the agenda. And so the next thing will be is a letter from me to the Commission of Education that Matt Ritter and I will go over shortly. And once we get that approval, then we can, I think, begin all the work that we need to do in terms of advocacy for this position. Okay, does everybody understand?
I caught the name Ann Baldwin. What role is she playing here?
We've hired her to help in strategic efforts and planning for moving forward with the John Lyman closure. Doug, you want to give a little bit of background to Jamie while we're here?
Sure. Yeah, I can't remember how much of this was discussed in full board and how much was in committee, but there's been a desire, I think for some time, if we're going to move in this direction, to hire an outside firm to assist the board with strategic communication and a way to make sure that well ahead of the formal referendum going to the voters, that the voters are very clear about kind of the rationale and the reasons why we're recommending to go in this direction. And I think it was felt that a decision of this magnitude and its kind of far-reaching implications, it's just important for us to get our message out clearly and also have some of the communication managed by an expert in that field. And so Ann is the individual that we've hired to do that.
And we were directed by the board to do that a few months ago. Any other questions or comments on utilization? If not, the next item is the Finance Committee meeting of April 28th, 2021. Christine's not here. Kim, would you mind talking about that?
Sure, I'll have to try to go off of memory. I wasn't prepared to speak about it tonight, but we got together and we talked about a couple of different, we talked just first about the budget, and how, that was developed. And then we spoke about Lyman School and the, how that the cash projections, the 10-year projected cash flow was going to be audited by an independent accounting firm that has a relationship with our independent auditors, Bloom Shapiro, who is now Clifton Larson Associates, and that a report would be forthcoming, which I did get, and we can discuss that, at another committee level, but that did come forth. We did speak of corn. And how we were just, waiting for the referendum to occur to determine what the outcome would be of that. And then there was just some discussion about capital needs. Really just updating the committee members of, that we still have the capital plan, and that, while we did bond for 6.9 million, 2 or plus years ago, that there have been systems that have then come to end of life during that time as well. And how we would look to potentially level fund the debt service going forward so that we could then bond. But there are other ways potentially to do that with the most recent appropriations committee suggestions for the budget at the state level, that the regional districts are not allowed to do the 2% cap. Hopefully that does pass. And we had a 1% cap on our capital reserve, 1% of our budget. When everybody else went to 2, regionals were left behind. So hopefully they're going to address that. Well, what that means is that we can then save more towards our capital needs and be able to do more things. And then I think we discussed town needs. There were a couple of town members on there that, really didn't have any that I can recall, Doug, any specific, other than the corn purchase that we discussed, but anything really that was pressing or that anyone really reported at that meeting.
Thanks, Kim. I think that's the only other thing that came out of there was a discussion about putting some traffic calming on Picket Lane.
Yes, and I have followed up on that and do have more information to report on that at utilization or whenever we discuss it.
Right. So I think that's it on that. Any other questions for finance? If not, on communications, one, Andrew was reelected Monday night to serve to December 6th. Congratulations, Andrew.
Way to go, dude.
And anybody wants to give him words of confidence or congratulations, please go ahead.
Congratulations.
Thank you, Victor.
I gave you my condolences at the event.
He did. We spent a lot of time at that event talking about pay periods and 53 pay periods. I received letters, emails from Juan Stefan, Marie Watson, Michelle Cohagen, and Tina Hurlbert, all related to our equity policy, and also requests to continue an equity committee that was at a staff level, Doug, that was being carried on and stopped because of COVID. So there's a desire on the outside to have that process continue if you have time. And I think it was a facilitated internal committee with most of the administrators attending. So that's I think that's all the comments I had. And again, Andrew already mentioned the Corn School vote, and we'll move forward that a little bit later. Time for the superintendent's report.
Whoa, wait. Communications, the letter from the Meriden Baptist Hills Church.
Yeah, Andrew mentioned that too.
Well, I mean, yeah, that's important. They want to pursue the purchase of John Lyman School. I just want to, Andrew kind of mentioned it briefly, but what's the next steps? How do they requested? I mean, what they requested was the ability for us to start entering into a negotiation for purchase and a sale contingent upon their sale of their building. And they would like their timing to be the summer of 22, I believe. So I think it's worth, mentioning that their level of intent is very real and very high at this point.
But it's contingent upon what happens in November. That's first stated, Bob.
Yes, it's contingent upon the vote of the taxpayers, whether to continue to operate or to close John Lyman. But I think, we needed to specify some of the other parts of the letter.
Thanks, Bob. Doug, did you want to have any add on to that during your report?
Yes, if it's time for my report, I can start with that first. I was going to address that a little bit, unless there's anything else before I start. All right, hearing none, yeah, I did forward that letter, and I do think it's important for you all to understand that I've been in contact with Russ Smith, the pastor of Meriden Hills Baptist Church, and I actually have scheduled time to talk with him either later this week or next week, whenever we can work our schedules out. And I think in previous conversations and from his letter, I do think it's important, and I'm glad we're talking about it publicly, to know that they are very interested and will, I think, be willing to come to terms with us sooner versus later. To Jamie's point, if the November referendum goes the way that authorizes us to actually do that, and they know that. And I also think Bob's point about their desire to be in the summer of 22 is important. I've also stated to him, and I will state to him again, that it's a bit premature for us to commit to a date at this point, given the uncertainty of the referendum and also some other issues that we've talked about where we might be in terms of configuring other schools. And again, I guess I want to reassure the board that I will maintain that relationship. And I think it's most appropriate that it be at a staff level, just given that negotiations need to be done that way, I believe. But I'll certainly keep you up to date. But I guess I just want to reiterate, they took the tour. My understanding is that more than 90% of their membership voted in favor of authorizing this letter of intent. And in my experience, getting 90% of any group to agree to anything is pretty rare. And so they definitely feel like the Lyman, not just the school, but the campus really meets their needs. And they are very interested. So I just think it was important to point that out. And two of you have already mentioned it, so I know it's on all of our minds at this point. But to the earlier point too, I think right now our immediate focus has to be getting that clear communication out there, and hopefully getting the citizens of both towns to give us permission to close the school, and then to ultimately decide if we're able to work with this church that's very interested in us. Again, I see that as a very positive sign, and hopefully you all do as well. Since we're on the topic of facilities, and this was also brought up by Andrew, but I also think it's important for you all to know that with the passage of the two questions in Durham on the referendum related to corn, that Laura Francis and I, along with members of our teams and respective attorneys, have already begun the process of moving that transition forward. There probably will be some decision points for the board to make over the next several months. Laura is estimating 4 months probably to get everything done. As you might imagine, it's not like we can just hand it off to them with a handshake and them handing us the dollar bill. There are some zoning issues, some planning issues. There are code compliance issues, and things just have to be done a certain way. But I guess I wanted you all to know that I, for one, am very pleased with the outcome of those two questions. I had been dreading the thought of those of us on the school district side, board and staff, having to really be involved with a demolition that would have been a distraction and an eyesore and an expense that I don't think any of us thought was probably the best. And so I'm thankful that the town has stepped up. And I just, what I've said to Laura, and hopefully you all have my back on this, is we're going to do whatever we can to make that transition smooth and to make that handoff happen as quickly as possible. And again, we will keep you updated as to the progress. But I did want you to know that we started immediately on that that transition, and we will continue to stick with it going forward. A couple of congratulations. One that's already been mentioned. I want to congratulate Andrew on his appointment. Glad to be working with you for at least another, I don't know, 7-8 months or whatever happens before the next cycle. Also, I have to be very careful with my language here, and I don't think Brian's on the Zoom anymore, but I think you all are aware that Brian Falcone was recently named as the finalist for the superintendent in Plymouth. The board there did put his name out there publicly as their intended hire. I say it that way because he's not officially appointed at this point, and so because of that, although we can congratulate him and think about what may come next for him and for the high school and for our district, we're not in a position to move forward with any type of posting for a replacement or a search process. But again, I guess what I would assure the board is that I am giving that some serious thought, and it hopefully will reassure you to know that this won't be the first high school principal that I've been involved in hiring. I've been involved in quite a few actually over the years, and feel pretty good that with the reputation of our district and of the high school, my hope is that we will attract quality applicants, internal and external, to the district. And to the extent that you all can help put that word out, especially after it becomes official, I think Brian would appreciate that. We'd like to get the strongest and deepest applicant pool that we can so that we can get the right fit moving forward. I also want to give a big thank you to all board members, to Kim, to the staff, whether they're those that are with us tonight or others, for the recent budget process. My first budget process here in RSD13. I also want to thank Dr. Serino because, she got it all started in the early fall and kind of handed it off to me. It was a completely new process for what I'm used to in the districts that I worked in Virginia, and some things were very similar. I mean, a budget is a budget, but some things were very different. And so I appreciate everyone's support of me, understanding that, I am the superintendent and I did have to propose a budget, but also to understand that I was learning the process as I was simultaneously trying to lead with all of you and with Kim that process. And I'm thrilled with the outcome. Again, I would have liked it better if everyone had voted for the budget, but I understand historically the outcome we got was a pretty good one. And I think it does really allow us now to start focusing more on our main goal of, teaching and learning and the rest of the business, knowing that our budget is in place. So again, just thank you to everyone for that. And so speaking of next school year, and this did come up in the budget discussion, but I think it's important because we've not discussed this since we've last met, and the information wasn't out there since we've last met. And you may know this already, but after significant begging and pleading from superintendents and others across the state, the Department of Ed finally came out with some guidance about next school year, and I'm pleased to report that at this moment, I have to qualify that by at this moment, and with where we are currently with the pandemic and the science as we know it today, there's not going to be a requirement for remote learning to be offered in 21-22 the way it was required this past year. And to also let you all know that, as a staff, we have determined, as we told you all during the budget process, that we also do not intend to offer remote learning in the way that we offered it this year. And that is not to say that there will not be circumstances based on individual needs where a remote option is not offered to young folks at their parents' request, but not kind of the open, I can be in this week, I can be off next week. And certainly what we're not going to be asking our teachers to do is the very challenging task that I think you heard from some of our reporters tonight, kind of concurrently teaching remotely and in person, given all the challenges that presents. Having said all that, I do believe that we have learned a lot this year. I think our teachers have learned a lot, our administration has learned a lot, our families, our learners have learned a lot about remote learning. And I do believe there is a role for remote learning in education because of what it can leverage. I just want to be clear that the way we did it this year, which we made it work as best as we can, and thank you to our teachers and families and learners for making it work. I think we all recognize that was not the ideal way to do remote learning. And this conversation is bigger than just RSD13. It's a conversation that we've been having as superintendents. And I believe the position that I've just articulated is the majority position of districts across the state. Maybe not all. There may be some that are wanting to resource for another year a fully remote option, but the majority, I think, are where we are, and that will allow our staff, who have done an amazing job with the concurrent and also with the dedicated cohort C work, to kind of get back to the work that they originally hired to do. And our encouragement is going to be to try to convince every family that it is safe for their children to return to school, and that the best place for children to be is at school, and we'll kind of deal with individual medical situations as they come, as we would have done prior to the pandemic. So I'm really thankful that we've been given that green light from the state, and we have begun communicating this to individual parents. We're still waiting to put any formal communication out on it because there's so much that changes at the state level. We just want to be sure before we put it out that this is where we are going. And the last thing I'm gonna bring up is vaccinations. We've talked in the past about our efforts to vaccinate our employees, and I'm gonna invite Kevin to jump in and give you an update on some of the work that he's helped coordinate in our efforts to, as of today, now get information to families about how they can vaccinate 12-year-olds and older with the announcement that came out today. So Kevin, would you kind of update the board and the public about where we are on that?
I sure will, Doug, and thank you. I just will take this opportunity to update the Board of Education. Several weeks ago, the CDC granted emergency youth authorization for individuals from ages 16 to 18 to receive the Pfizer vaccination. So we've reached out to from Middlesex Health, who scheduled a dedicated clinic for our 16 and 18-year-old students in conjunction with students from Middletown at their vaccination facility on Middlesex Avenue in Middletown, actually the Main Street extension in Middletown. So keeping with this theme of rapid change, as most of you know, the CDC granted emergency youth on 15-year-olds today, as a matter of fact. So anticipating that, we worked again with Middlesex Health, and tomorrow we are going to distribute a flyer to students at Strong School in Coggins, basically providing specific information where they can receive the vaccine through Middlesex Health at their Main Street extension location by accessing their website. So basically, it's not a dedicated clinic per se. I think, as most people know, a lot of vaccine available at this time. So I think our parents and youngster vaccination appointments at their convenience, and that could be any day of the week or during the weekend. So I think from our perspective, that's a really good thing. It provides our students and families with a lot of flexibility. A pretty high percentage of our students be vaccinated and be fully vaccinated at the start of the next school year. So that's a very, very good thing. We're also working with our local health officer to possibly coordinate a clinic within the town of Middlesex in the town of Durham. So we're waiting for when those clinics are made available, or if those clinics are made available very, very good work on the part of Middlesex Health. As everybody knows, this is very rapidly evolving, so we're trying to keep pace, but our primary goal is to get our students vaccinated going forward.
Doug and maybe Kevin, just a few questions on the, I don't know if you'd had this conversation within the superintendents, but so one, do we have an idea about what the % vaccination of our staff and students 16 and 18 are? I just think that that's important from the public perception of school safety to know the general percentage of how many students and staff that we have vaccinated. And then the second question, thinking more long-term as we move into the next school year, has there been any discussion about what it's going to mean and what steps we need to take to be able to eventually not have to wear a mask? And I say this in relation to staff being vaccinated or not being vaccinated and being within schools. And I just wonder if there's been any conversation on those fronts for both of those things.
Well, and I know Kevin's signal was breaking up a little bit. Kevin, do you want to address the staff and students? I know we are limited in kind of asking people if they've been vaccinated outside of a contact tracing situation, but do you have kind of a sense?
I do, Doug. I can provide some anecdotal information. At our dedicated clinic at the Oakdale in Wallingford, we had approximately 71% of our staff vaccinated at that specific site. And just taking a look at the numbers and the communication I had with other staff members, I would venture to say that we can verify 90 to 95% of our staff members having been vaccinated.
And from the student perspective, has there been discussions for vaccine reporting to schools? I mean, we report vaccines for multiple other vaccines, and those are part of general school forms. And so has that been discussed about a necessary documentation for next year?
What I can share on that,
I think it's. I think based on the preliminary information that we received in talking with our attorneys in Shipman and Goodwin, this is still somewhat uncharted ground. But I think, our legal counsel will be working very hard to set up guidelines as far as what we can do to determine or to validate the number of vaccines we do have with our students.
What I'll add to that, Andrew, I think it's a really good question, is my understanding, and again, this is just what I've heard from others, I'm not the expert in this area, is that there is a distinction in kind of tracking this data or even asking folks to submit it, be it employees or families and students, while this is still under an emergency use authorization. And my understanding is that once these vaccines reach full FDA approval, and you probably know what the differences between those two are more than I do, we would then be in a better position legally to ask those questions. There could possibly even be a requirement that someone be vaccinated at that point to be employed by us or to attend school, as we do with other vaccines. But at this juncture, I've not heard that is probably going to happen by the fall. Having said all of that, I think your question about masks, about social distancing, about all of those pieces, I really think we have to see how things play out over the summer. We still don't know what may or may not happen next week. The working assumption that we're hearing is that, of course, all these business restrictions are going to go away, but for now, the indoor mask mandate is going to remain for schools and for businesses. But certainly, I think, and this goes back to even our ask, we can't tell parents, obviously, to get their 12 to 17-year-olds vaccinated is that the more people that are vaccinated in general at all age groups, the better we would feel about relaxing some of those standards. But I have not heard anything from the state yet saying that we would be free of those restrictions to start next fall. But they've really been kind of silent on it. What they have said is that they do expect us to follow them through the end of this school year, which is challenging given how things are kind of improving and what may be happening outside of schools. But we're still asking. I was at some sporting events yesterday, and I was happy to say that, the majority of spectators that I saw were wearing face coverings, but they weren't all. And that's really kind of a gray area now, because we've had the president out there saying, if you're fully vaccinated, you should be comfortable. The science says you should do that, and we're certainly not asking everyone to show a vaccine card when they come to a baseball game or something like that. So I think it's a really good question, and I think it's fair to say, as superintendents, we keep asking that question too. We just haven't gotten a definitive answer, but I do think the answer lies more in how well can Connecticut and even our two towns here reach the people who at this point, for whatever reason, have chosen not to get vaccinated, whether they're afraid, whether they don't believe in it. Because I think if we know that and our health director tells us it's safe and we're allowed to, I would love to open school next year with none of those restrictions. But I don't want to get anybody's hopes up, because we just don't know.
Thanks, appreciate it.
All right, that's it, Bob, unless there were other questions about anything that I shared.
Bob, are you talking?
Bob, you're muted.
Yeah, I forgot. I just wanted to point out, Doug, that there's a concert next Friday, first one in a year and a half. In the field, I don't know if we're supposed to bring our own chairs, but probably some information will go out on that.
And just because this dovetails with the prior, what is going to be our stance on masks outside for that particular event?
Brian's not here, but I think our position, which is consistent with the CDC guidance, is that outdoors masks are still mandated for what are considered large crowds and large gatherings. Now, I don't know how many people are going to come to that concert. I hope a lot of people do. So we're asking everyone to wear masks when they come to that, and also distance and do all those things. And again, I think the same will be true for graduation and the other handful of large gatherings that we are doing. And I think by us doing them outside, even though that might be less than ideal for, say, acoustics for a concert, I think everyone recognizes that the health and safety at this point still has to be where we defer on that.
Thanks, Doug. Any other comments? And not finance, Kim.
So as we close out this fiscal year, coming to the end, we have finished the month of April, and the general fund came in at 79% expended, and we've received 84% of our revenue that we had budgeted to date. Our revenue will be down, I do believe, absent of the coronavirus relief funds, because our building use and our interest income are coming in under what we had budgeted for, and understandably so. MTA is at 48% expended, and 67% we've received revenue to date. And in the month of June, May, June, probably June is when we will transfer the health insurance reimbursement that the general fund has paid for the MTA employees, as well as the tuition transfer that we use to balance the budget. And that could total between 100 and 150,000. So that'll happen in June. What that does is obviously that increases the revenue in the general fund, and it also increases the expenditures in MTA. So that will be done then. That's all I have for financials. I just wanted to mention that we did receive our, I guess you would call them final allocations for the American Rescue Plan, which we were preliminary. I was saying 472,000 for a while because that's what I had heard. Our official number is $449,040. With that, there's a 20% set aside for learning loss, and that 20% totals 89,000. So the team is discussing the use of the funds. The funds do not have to be expended until September of 2024. And certainly there is the ability to sort of reserve funds for future determination. Maybe we don't know what next year is going to look like later in the year or even the year out. So we do have the flexibility to kind of reserve some of those funds and then just draw them down as we need them. And that is all I have for tonight.
Kim, what's your current forecast of the fund balance for the ballot for this year?
So we will, with exceedingly be able to cover the 400,000 that we transferred over, the fund balance carryover to balance the 21-22 budget. And with that, we could see another, you know, I want to be conservative. I don't want to, you know, give an estimate that I can't pull up, but I would say in the neighborhood of $200,000 to $300,000 after the 400. So we're looking at probably about a $700,000 total surplus.
And during the budget process, you were forecasting between 6 and 7, I think, right?
Yeah,
Isn't that what we're saying?
exactly.
Okay. All right. Just wanted to make sure we're still on track to that. So
We are.
thank you. Okay. Good job.
Thank you.
Good on you, Kim.
Thank you.
Again, thank you for all your work on the budget, which I think passed by, since I've been here, more votes than ever before. So the next item is new business. The first is the healthy food certification. I think, Kim, you're best to handle that.
Oh, sure. I have a couple of motions that I know were shared with everyone. I can pull that out if you need me to, but this is what we do every year. We participate in the National School Lunch Program, and as a part of that, we receive reimbursement for our free and reduced, as well as our full paying meals. But part of that is only offering what they consider the healthy food and beverage choices, and also the timing of when we are allowed to sell certain goodies, like at different, you know, fundraisers and things like that, with exceptions. So it's not new. We do it every year. And if you have a motion, I would love someone to take care of that. If not, I can pull it up.
Does anybody want to see the motion? We have it. There you go. So anybody will make the motion for the language for a healthy food option, both motion one? Somebody will make that motion?
So moved.
Do I have a second?
Second.
All right. Any comments? Not all in favor, please say aye. Aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Abstain? We have a motion number 2, as appears on the screen. Does anybody will make a motion?
So moved.
Second.
Any comments? If not, all in favor, please say aye. Aye.
Aye.
Aye.
Thank you. The next item is a vote to approve the Disney field trip for request for next year. Do I have a motion to approve that?
So moved.
Second.
Is there any comments on that?
Do we need to
have a new
state the
policy.
wording?
Yeah,
Right.
we have a new policy. Let's make sure that is attached to the permission slips and all of that.
Yes.
And also,
How do I sign up to be a chaperone for that one?
Yeah.
I'll go.
You have to play an instrument. You're gonna have to sing or dance or play an instrument, Missy.
I've danced since I was 4, so don't tempt me.
All right, you should be there. All right.
Yes, he's well qualified with the hour she spent with Paper House Productions. I know.
I know. All those in favor, say aye. Aye.
Aye. Aye.
The last is the vote to authorize the superintendent to negotiate the sale of Corn School building to the town of Durham. We have a motion to authorize Doug to do the negotiations. Again, we will.
Please, can I make the motion?
Yes.
I make the motion.
Victor made the motion. We have a second.
Second.
Any comments? All in favor, please say
Yeah,
aye.
one comment. At what point will we see like preliminary terms and conditions so we can understand exactly what's being negotiated? Like just broad strokes and not to go down in the details, but I know that we don't have a separate parcel of land identified nor surveyed that the school actually sits on. So I'm not sure how we're going to handle the transfer of the land, or is it just the building and then a land use for the land that the building sits on, the parking and what. I don't know how we're going to structure it, but I'd like to at some point see some of those terms so I understand them and see how we're proceeding with that.
I think that's reasonable, Bob. And I think, I think the good news here is in terms of negotiating the sale in terms, we know they're buying it for $1. So that part of the negotiation is out. But I do think the issue that you raised, along with any associated memorandums of understanding about field use, field maintenance, again, some of this may be a little bit difficult for the town to really articulate, not knowing in the timeline that we're doing this, how robust their design plan is for the use of that building and that campus. But, my assumption is from what I've heard from Laura so far and even public discussion is they're probably going to want to keep some semblance of parking and perhaps some outdoor use, but she clearly knows that the athletic fields that are currently ours, we're still going to need to use them. So we're either going to need an MOU that gives us permission and probably we would maintain those fields since we're using them. But so it'll be either or, and again, the point you brought up about the land, I think is the part that really needs to be discussed. I'm not even sure that negotiation is the best term, although it works for the motion. They now are getting the building, and we want to make sure that, at least from my perspective, that the transition is smooth, and also that this happens as quickly as possible so we can get out from under kind of the financial burden and also the maintenance burden as that transfers over. So to answer your question, my intent is to keep you all informed at different stages of that. But I think what the spirit of this motion, if you all are okay with it, is that we not slow down the process by requiring me to come back to you to get formal votes on each one of these terms. If that were to be necessary, I think that 4 months would be longer. But again, this is where we just want to make sure that the board is comfortable with all of this. And my personal opinion, again, being the new guy, is that the big enchilada is already decided. And these other things are kind of smaller, but still important things to consider. And of course, Kim and her team will be part of that. It won't be me alone because she's got a better handle on both the financials and also the maintenance side. And I don't know, Kim, do you want to add anything to that?
Just to add on that, we have started the process. We've started discussions with our attorney. Jimmy has met, I'm sorry, I'm talking about corn here. We're talking about Lyman. But we have, just opened a discussion with, talking about, I'm sorry. Are we talking about Lyman or corn? Caught me off guard.
Corn.
Thank you.
I'm sorry,
So that's
Kim.
what I started off. I was right. But so no, we've started discussions with our attorney. And I know that Jimmy has met with the Public Works Department for Durham as well as Laura, and kind of just helping them come to an idea of where we're leading off and where they're taking over, and helping any way we can with keeping any kind of, reinstating the fire panel again, because the temperature is now warmer, and just sort of things like that. Originally, there was some talk about a 6-acre parcel of land in one of the earlier MOUs. So I don't know if there was, Bob may remember, but I don't know if there was a certain part that was discussed. And then we also have to look at underground oil tanks. We have to look at who's going to maintain Picket Lane, who's going to mow, who's going to plow, who's going to sweep the streets after a sanding event in the winter. So there's a lot going on, and so once we get that, kind of come to an agreement, I guess, or kind of filter it down, then we can report back.
Yeah, and given what I know about the lack of a survey and the lack of the parcels and the leaching field going on to 2 separate parcels, not one. So subdividing becomes very challenging. It may be that the better option is that we maintain the land, we own the land, they get the right of way for the use of the land, as opposed to the other way around, because we may not legally have a parcel we can designate to actually legally transfer. So that, and I know you have attorneys involved, land use attorneys and stuff, but that may be the most efficient way of doing it, is a $1 a year lease for 99 years, something like that. Or not even a lease, but just a right of way that doesn't have an expiration. So
yeah, and we'd like to not be stuck with maintaining the leach field.
I think the leach field.
No, they would maintain. It's just like when you do a land lease, you can lease someone the land and then they can build whatever they want on it. And they're fully responsible for maintaining whatever's built on it. So a leaching field is considered an improvement to the property. And as an improvement, they would be maintaining all improvements. That's how.
I think my last discussion is that the leaching field is all on a single, it's not split anymore. It's all taken care of in one spot. So again, the biggest issue is what's the land that goes with it, and where are the boundaries, and what the survey. And I know that they're started that work. So, but I think that's probably the most important decision for the board, is the boundaries, and then whatever use restrictions there are that go along with that.
Yeah, and that's where I'm saying, from an expediency purpose, since we don't have an A1 survey of the property, from expedience, it makes we maintain ownership and provide them a right of use.
We'll get there.
Or they do a land lease for $1 for 100 years. So it'll be a $2 deal.
I think we'll get there really quick on that issue.
I think we'll need another town meeting if it's $2 instead of $1.
Yeah, probably. Anyway, I'm further comments. If not, all in favor, say aye. Aye.
Aye.
Aye.
Thank you. Finally, we have time for public comment. Can anybody out there?
We have one caller. If you wish to speak, please dial *9. They're not raising their hand.
Okay. Next, again, for next meeting, we'll be at the library, and the public, if they want to come, will have, speak, they have to come to the meeting. You'll require to wear masks, and we'll be socially and distant in our seating. So thank you very much. We have a motion to adjourn.
So moved.
Thank you. Second?
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Good night, everybody, and I will see you on the 26th. And we, don't forget, we have Doug's evaluation. So if you haven't sent it to Lucy, please do that. And good night.
Good night.